Alright folks, so this is a little how-to video on the 2001 Saturn L200, or the L series 2.2 Ecotec engine, replacing the alternator. Forgive the snow. I'm in New England right now in the middle of a snowstorm. It actually broke down last night with the alternator. I just wanted to put a little instructional video together because I noticed, trying to look for the repair myself, there were no videos on the subject. Tools that you will want for this, I suggest a 3/8 ratchet. This is actually a switching 3/8 to 1/4 drive, but a 3/8 ratchet. This one is also extendable, where you can extend the length of the ratchet to get yourself extra torque if you need it. Flathead screwdriver, very simple there, of course. I would suggest a pair of pliers. These are actually Irwin's take on the vice grip channel lock pliers, but these will take a couple clamps off for you. And then also you'll need two 3/8 sockets. You'll need a 10mm socket, and I would suggest a deep well socket for this one. You'll need a 1/2" 3/8 drive socket. Again, you'll want a deep well, and you'll see why here in just a moment. A lot of this is actually taken apart, just so that I can go through the video very quickly. And of course, you can pause the video as you need. We have two clamps that will take off, one here at the throttle body, and then also here at the air filter box. This makes it very simple. A lot of people don't remove this, but it makes it very simple to do this repair. You also have a connector it's actually buried up under the box. We'll show it to you as we take everything apart, but as we got the box back together, the connector's actually fallen through. But go ahead and take that connector out. Take your flathead, or if you have a different clamp, of course you'll need whatever tools you'll need to take those off. My suggestion is to replace the clamps if you're taking them off with the flathead, because it makes replacing the air filter later on too very easy. Just use your flathead, loosen that clamp here, loosen that clamp here, and it gives this a little bit of free play. Use your pliers to, and that was to take off I was trying to point to the throttle body, I apologize. Kind of hard to aim here, especially in the snow. Loosen your clamp here at the top for that breather tube. Take that tube off. Then you can take this, move it to the side. Then also take off the clamp for the air pump, the air going into the air pump from the air filter box. Take that, move it away. Release you've got a clamp here and a clamp here for the air filter top. You can pull that out and move that away. Now for this portion here at the top, you'll have one bolt at the top holding the bottom of the air filter housing in. This is where you use your 10mm socket, and you'll remove that bolt at the top. And you kind of have to play and move around the filter box. I apologize again, trying to do this two-handed, and just kind of angle it up from the engine. Make sure that you're removing the tube from the intake. Not the intake, but the port where the air comes in from the front of the vehicle. Pull that out, move it away. That gives you good access to get to the belt. Now your 3/8 drive ratchet, all you have to do to remove your belt is you can take your ratchet with extension, and on almost the middle side of the tensioner, line up your ratchet, insert the drive of the ratchet, and pull upward to release the tension on the belt, and then remove your belt from all 4 of your pulleys. Once that's done, you have access to the alternator. Now you have 2 connections on the alternator. You have one post connection here. That's for the positive terminal, and then you also have a snap-in connector And again, all this has been removed, so let me resituate that so you can see it. It's a connector that basically snaps in there at the bottom. I'm not going to snap it back in, of course, because I don't want to redo the work, but there's a release closer towards the wire, the connections. You squeeze that in toward the connector, or in toward the wires. So basically you're squeezing with your, you can squeeze with your index finger and your thumb, or you can use the pair of pliers again to help you get a little leverage on that, and you just pull that out and away. And then this post, you can use the 1/2 drive socket, and for mine the bolt, or the nut, had actually rusted a little bit and swollen, so it may take you some effort to get that socket on, but it is a 1/2-inch socket. Just put that on the nut and release the pull the nut off, move that basically to the side, and pull your connector off there. Now the mounting of the alternator, you have 4 long bolts. You have one here at the top. If you move that radiator hose, you've got one there, and then basically in the same positions at the bottom, you see one here, and then there's one hidden under the alternator right about here. That you can also use the half-inch socket, and then just remove those 4 bolts. My suggestion would be to remove the top left last, remove the other 3, and then you can pull the alternator out. Now, some folks will probably suggest removing this radiator hose. You really don't need to do that. You can slip on that deep well socket and take off this bolt at the top, and then usually this should be at least a little bit flexible. If it's too flexible, you will want to replace that. But this one's still kind of rigid. Sorry, my aim again. This hose is still a little rigid, so just kind of pull that up so that you can get your socket in there on top of the bolt. Pull that guy out, and then once you remove the last bolt, just a moment because it's just hanging on by the one thread. That's the length of the bolts, just so you kind of have an idea of what you're working with in there. That alternator will release. Grab it by the pulley. And you might have to work at it a little bit. Move that radiator hose out of the way, sort of, kind of, maybe. Let me sit this down for just a moment. I apologize. Kind of have to work the top of the alternator away from the engine hook. Ground. Connector apparently is going to be the bear of the whole thing. The snap-in connector we were talking about earlier. The way I just got that is just kind of get this kind of connector area here around the radiator hose. Voila, you have an alternator out. Then of course, installation is a reversal removal. Slide them back in, mount up your four bolts, plug up your 2 connectors, then reminder 3/8 drive ratchet on the inside of the tensioner. Install your belt, and then this is the connector we were talking about that came, the first connector to remove off of the air tunnel coming off the air filter box into the throttle body. That's the one that you snap out from right about here. Back on subject, get your belt back on, put the bottom of the air filter housing back in, make sure you got your connector out of the way so that you don't have to fight with that later. 10mm bolt to reinstall, that's the actual bolt there. 10mm bolt to reinstall that, put your top of the air filter back in, put the top of the air filter housing back in, reinstall the tunnel, reinstall the air pump hose, reinstall the breather to the engine, and fire it up. Should be good.